Hi guys, thanks for riding with Marshall once again. We're taking a little bit of a break from all the motorcycle reviews, and I have ridden a few more motorcycles. In fact, we buy one every year, and we bought one, but you'll have to keep watching. Subscribe please if you want to see what we bought. And there was some bike testing, even some demo rides in the way, so you should check those out. Today the Moto Guzzi has been in my hands for over a year, and we're going to review that. So where are we today? We're at Douglas Reservoir in Colorado, not very far from where I live. And as I was saying, I have the Moto Guzzi V85TT Travel, and I've had it for over a year. I've had it for over 7,500 miles. It's not my only bike. I do have other bikes I ride too, so 7,500 is that kind of just goes to show it's been a bike of choice for the year. In this year, I have had, other than first service done, I did the valves myself. They're pretty easy to do. There's one thing that they leave out if you go to YouTube, and that is that your cylinder has to be at top dead center on the right cam. If it's on the wrong cam, both lifters are going to feel really tight, and you don't want to start there. You want to start where one of the lifters feels a little bit. You can get some gauge in there because you're tightening them. You're adjusting them because they're typically loose. So make sure you rotate the engine. In this case, I have a center stand on the Travel, came with it. Make sure you rotate the wheel in third gear until the cylinder is at top dead center, and that there's actually some gap in one of the valves. So, and then adjust your valves. Somehow that gets left out of the YouTube videos. Anyway, so in a year, yes, I've adjusted it. Actually did it twice because I thought I heard some rattling going on in early startup. I just want to make sure it wasn't this cylinder. It's as good as it's going to get. One thing I did have to fix was it's fairly easy to get these cases off. You just put your key in here, turn it, and the case slides off. But in the case of this particular one, it wasn't doing it. It was very hard to get it on and off, very hard. And the reason was because behind this box is the lock mechanism. And in that lock mechanism, the factory had the metal plate incorrectly installed. It needed to be flipped around. It was 180 degrees off, which meant that the two prongs were both in the way when you're trying to get the lock, trying to get the case on and off. Let me get the key. Let's see if you can see the metal in here. You should just have one prong, not two. It shouldn't go up and then there'd be a second one. So yeah, I had to take apart the lock and fix it. But if that's going to be my problem, something I can easily fix that didn't really affect anything, I'll take that. So as I said, in a year, no real service issues. Now I should put it in for one very inexpensive service, flashing the TPMS sensors. Apparently you can do that for the price of labor. I'm told that's about $75. Will the bike do 90 miles an hour or better? Sure it will. But unless you have your phone set to GPS, will you really know? Because as I stated in a prior video, almost everything on this computer is wrong. It's all wrong. TPMS, tire pressure sensors, they're off by anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds, depending on the temperature. So you can have the tire pressure sensor going off at you, and it says if you check the tire pressure on the computer, it'll say you're at 30 pounds, when you're really at 34 to 35. Now you want to be running at 36, but even still, you know, it's throwing a hissy fit. The fuel gauge. So the Moto Guzzi V85TT has something very few bikes have, and that is a 6-gallon fuel tank. 6 gallons is awesome. Theoretically, even if you're only doing 40 miles an hour, 40 miles per gallon, do the math, you should get a range of like 240 miles. Typically, I'm getting around 50 miles to the gallon. So I should be, about 300 miles. So you figure your fuel warnings should start whistling at you, screaming out the bike is hungry. It should be doing that at maybe 250 miles. Instead, the bike is crying that it's hungry at only 3 gallons. And you know better. It's got 6 gallons. Every time I fill it up when it's crying at me for fuel, it only takes 3 gallons. Now, there may be a reason for that, but, we're just relying that people are silly. The reason is, if you have a fuel pump, and you do, it's got to be immersed in gasoline to keep cool. If you run your tanks empty all the time, you're running that fuel pump in a dry environment that's warmer than if it were in liquid. And that may be why so many motorcycles go through fuel pumps, although that's not known to be an issue with the Guzzi. Probably because it's screaming you're out of gas when you've only gone half your range. So speedometer on the Guzzi is off by quite a bit. So when you think you're doing 90, if you check it with the GPS, you're actually only doing about 85. Small downside, and you're going to find this on almost every bike out there, including, another spoiler alert, the Indian Scout. These catalytic converters get hot. Thank you so much, Euro 5, for frying our right legs off. It does bring up a question, and I'm sure I'm wrong, as I always am. But if we're trying to cut down CO2 to keep the earth from warming up, but yet every vehicle that's out there running has a cat converter that in this case is running at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, we're not heating the atmosphere later, we're heating it right now. This cat converter right here gets toasty on your ankles on a warm day. Especially after you come off the interstate. It's pretty darn toasty, that cat converter. I tried wrapping it in some exhaust muffler tape that said it was okay for cats. Yeah, it wasn't. The adhesive smoked up a storm. You wouldn't believe how much smoke came off. And then the aluminum foil just peeled off like a bad sunburn. But for a few minutes, it worked great. Now in the US, most of the US doesn't care if you have a cat converter on a motorcycle. They realize most people aren't riding a motorcycle enough miles to make a major impact. And you can decat them. I think it's Mistral, I don't know how you pronounce it. They make a nice stainless steel header. You do have to go all the way back to the cylinder though, because the cat converter comes up in here. The honeycombing comes up there. So you pretty much have to replace the entire header going into the muffler, and then it's up to you whether you want to replace the muffler with something snazzier than the great plastic that it is. Might cost you around $600 by the time you're done. Might cost you more if you decide to remap the engine, which I would recommend because you're going to be running awfully lean if you have less resistance to the muffler. Anyway, yes, you can decat them. Until California starts smogging motorcycles, and then every other state that follows Cartoonifornia's lead starts insisting on smogging motorcycles, and then you're going to wish you had that cat back. So I probably am not going to take off my cat converter until I find out where we're going to shift to politically, because that's where it all comes down to. I'm just going to have to put up with hot ankles in the summer. But in the wintertime, it's a very nice foot warmer. So that really is about it for the negatives on this bike. As I said, why did I buy it if it's got all these things wrong with the computer? And, well, it's got so many things right. So many things right. The things I look for in a bike after having ridden so many, and recently, I'm going to give you a little clue. I'm up to 176 bikes I've ridden. All that shopping recently, yeah, we'll get to that in the next video. But yeah, that racked up some bikes. The things I look for in a bike is I want a shaft drive because I'm done oiling chains. I just don't want to oil a chain. And if you're going to ride gravel, you don't want a belt drive. So there's your three. You got three choices. Belt drive out because, you know, gravel. You can do it, but you'll be replacing that belt sooner than you want to. And I'm sure they're not cheap. The chains are great. You can go without oiling a chain. I've heard people do that. I personally would want to keep a chain as long as I could, and that usually requires some oil. Shaft drive. Change the fluid on the maintenance schedule. You're done. Don't even worry about it. And that's why I like shaft drives. And the Guzzi probably has a more reliable one than some of the older BMWs. The older BMWs have really gotten a bad name for how they rust inside. And the Guzzis, they only have a bad name if they start leaking, and they typically only start leaking if they were overfilled. And the factory has been lectured on that. The factory doesn't overfill them anymore. And if you have a good Guzzi dealer, they don't overfill them either. Your magic number there is 160 milliliters. Remember that. 160, not 180. The suspension on it is super smooth. Yeah, I've done some videos recently on some very bad roads where I had to stop and just give up. And that's on me, because I didn't have the front suspension set softer. It came from the factory or from the dealer, your choice, with the front suspension set pretty stiff. You should feel a little bit of a dive in there. When the bike goes down, there should be a little bit of dive. I had mine set too stiff. And it's as easy as turning this screw about 2 clicks, or maybe 3, counterclockwise to soften up the front end. And then it makes it even smoother. I thought it was smooth before. The things that I added to the bike didn't cost me a whole lot. In fact, the Rox risers, you're paying for the brand name, but they're very good. I added the risers, and now the bars are all day comfortable. I am so happy with that. You can do it yourself. It's just bolts, guys. Feed yourself a little bit of extra cabling and bolt those in. Make sure you use Loctite once you know that you got it where you want it, because you don't want those coming loose. Your life is in your hands, literally. The Rox risers are great. You can find them on Amazon. I went with chrome. I could have went with black. I didn't really care. It was whatever was going to get here soonest. I added also from Amazon this little adjustable windscreen, and that is because I often commute on the interstate, and the interstate in the mornings especially is often moving at 80 miles an hour, and you don't want to be the slowest chicken on the road, or the fox will get you. And the fox is usually some contractor staring at a map on his phone and riding right up you know what. So go with the flow if you're on the interstate, please. Also get on the interstate fast if you're on the on-ramp. It's like, get up to speed, okay? End of public service message. In the winter time, with just the Travel's normal windscreen, the cold air would hit me right in the neck. So this little clamp on, which I don't remember what I paid for it, but knowing how cheap I am, it was probably 35 or 40 bucks. I put it on there, secured it, and then I used silicone just to make sure none of the Allens come out. And it's been on there ever since. Hasn't moved. It's been wonderful. Other things to love about the Guzzi, though. I love that. I love the Eagle. No other bike has that. The Harley, the new Harleys have what they call an Eagle. It looks a little different than that. That's really cool. Call them seagulls. I don't care what. The ride is super smooth, as I said. The engine has character, especially once you break them in. Now, you may not be too impressed prior to your 600-mile service. It's like 660 or something. It's 1,000 kilometers, okay? It's your 1,000-kilometer service. The bike feels a little detuned. Doesn't feel really gutsy. But after that service, and especially after they flashed it for my elevation here in Colorado, which is at 5,000 feet where I'm at right now, It's fun. It is a fun engine. You've heard it about Moto Guzzis before. They are a great engine. They're basic. I mean, now the newer model, V85TT Travel, has variable valve timing, and that'll help with it'll give you better fuel economy. It might even get you a little more oomph, I don't know. But even the way it is, the old school motor that it is, when it starts up, the bike shakes like a wet dog. It's fun, and it has sound. Now, spoiler alert, I've recently ridden some Harleys, I've recently ridden some Indians, and they are quiet as a lamb now. Thanks to EPA and everything else, they are quiet. The Guzzi actually has some gronk to it. Actually makes some nice sound. You don't just have the engine sound, you also have a transmission sound. And it's almost like a hummingbird. It's kind of, you have a symphony of sounds going on with the Moto Guzzi, with the growl of the motor, the real growl of the air intake, and then you have the clutch chirping going on, and then you have the shaft drive sound that you hear sometimes. Add to that when you corner and you hear your tires make some humming too. It all is a wonderful little symphony that makes you feel like alive. It makes you feel alive. It's pretty cool. All right, well, I think I'm out of things to jibber jabber about. The brakes, Brembo brakes. Do I need to say anything about Brembo brakes? They really do work on this bike. I mean, you're talking about a bike that's only 550 pounds roughly anyway. And the Brembos work great. The bike will do anything I ask. One more really cool benefit I have to bring up, because not every bike has it, and every bike should. Okay? I'm going to show you. See that right there? That's a 90-degree tire stem. They come stock on the Guzzis. How nice is that? Yeah, if you've got a big hose for your air compressor, squeezing one in there this way doesn't always work so well. But you can always get one at a 90. Thank you very much, Moto Guzzi, for that little thought right there. If you're thinking about changing the color of a Moto Guzzi V85TT, I looked into it. These panels come off. You can change that. You can change the fender. The entire kit is going to run you about $1,000 American. Is it worth it to you to spend $1,000 on your bike to change the color? Or just leave it alone? So what else have I done in the year that I've had it? I've added, of course, other things. A top case. Now, if you're lucky, you know a guy who has a garage and he's got a top case for you for 30 bucks. And I added that to the luggage rack, and I did it kind of permanently. I mean, it's bolted, but I don't want it coming loose. So I drilled holes through it. It's bolted in there pretty good. And it's done the shake test over many a gravel road. It's held on. So why do I need a top case if I got two side cases? Because I might leave the side cases at home, because they are called urban cases. One hit to the ground and you're going to shear them off. So I don't know that for a fact. I just heard somebody else that did it, and they don't recommend that you keep the urban cases. So did Moto Guzzi know you're going to off-road with it? They probably didn't intend for you to off-road with the urban cases. Gravel roads, sure, you're not going to do anything to a gravel road unless you really can't ride this gravel and you fall over. And even then, they could probably handle a scuff. They're pretty thick plastic. What else have I done? I gotten it dirty. It is pretty dirty. I'm getting it dirty again today, though. I've changed the tires. They came with Trail Max Meridians instead of Missions or Anakees. Mine came with Meridians, which are a road tire. And because I'm cheap, I put Shinko 705s on it. So this set of Shinko 705s I put on at 1,100 miles because I didn't blow it, but I got a screw in the other tire. And I wanted off-road tires anyway, or at least 80/20s, which these are. These are actually rated mud and snow. Can you believe that? Shinko Trailmasters. It's upside down, but M&S rating. A mud and snow rating. I find that funny. Anyway, Shinko 705s are a really inexpensive tire, and as such, they last like an inexpensive tire. So I have, let's see, we've got over 7,800 on the bike. Yeah, I've got like 6,700 miles on this set of tires, and the front is holding up really well still. I might get another 3 or 4 out of that. The rear tire, because that's where my butt is wearing a little thin in the center. In fact, they're pretty much done. I already have another tire, I just haven't put it on yet. I'm just trying to get some wear on the sides, you know? You'd think Colorado has some curves. We do have some curves. It's been up and down the mountains many, many times, but a lot of my commuting is right down the center, sadly. I still got new nubs over here. It's really, really sad. I know you're all going to tell me, how come I don't take it on more twisties? It's been on the twisties lots of times. It's just even when you're on twisties, you're not riding over here. Not unless you're on a sport bike looking to kill yourself. So, as I ramble on and on and on, but that seems to be the key for YouTube. You'll notice anybody that posts daily, which I do not do, that's making a living with YouTube, they never shut the hell up, do they? They just jibber jabber the entire time, and they're making more than me. Anyway, that's not my point here. My point is to tell you I've had the Moto Guzzi for a year. I still enjoy it. I have not intended to trade it in. There's still one more thing I want to talk about, which is utterly fantastic for Moto Guzzi, and that is this. This seat. I cannot tell you how nice this seat is. Usually, a motorcycle manufacturer, oftentimes motorcycle manufacturers throw on seats they know you're going to change out, because a good portion of the money that a dealership makes is made by the accessories you need to fix it. And that is why certain companies like HD put out things like bikes with forward controls and drag bars. Who wants to ride completely folded in a V? You might, as you drive it off the dealership lot, but do you want to ride that way? Eventually you're changing out the bars. Most of the HD riders I know have changed out the bars or the seat and the pipes at their own expense, of course. Moto Guzzi put a seat on this that's all day comfortable, and I noticed that during my very first test ride, my very first video. I said, this seat though, this is amazing. And it really is amazing. It's great for off-road, it's great for long stints on the pavement. It's got just the right amount of cush. And I love a bump stop. The bump stop really just holds me in place when I want to relax and set the cruise control. And in case you didn't know, the V85TT has cruise control and heated grips and comes that way stock. I didn't have to pay for heated grips, or I didn't even have to pay for grips. If you've ever seen a brand new Harley, they have no grips. They have a rubber sleeve with no grip on it. Why? So that you'll pay to put other grips on it, or you cheat like I do. I've gotten addicted to just putting hairbands on my grips. But see these grips? They actually have some grip. But my hands are big, and so I need a little more leverage. And I like good old hairbands. I'm not going to change the grips out, folks. I'm that cheap. I just put hairbands on my grips, and they're great. You can roll them around if your hands get fatigued. Just move the grips, just move the hairbands around. They work great. All right, now, do you have any other questions about what it's like to own a V85TT? You will be adjusting the valves at 6,000 miles, maybe even sooner, if you ride it during hot summers. It's currently approaching 90 here, which is why I'm red and sweaty. Yeah, and maybe it's just about 85 or so. Hard to say. But Moto Guzzi V85TT, I'm going to cut this short and just say it's a great bike. It's great on gravel. It's great on the street. It's very maneuverable, and it's very engaging with all its many sounds and its throttle response. I really like it. Just to shape things up, you've been wondering what's behind me. Let's go for what? Are there fish in this reservoir? Yes. Are there snakes around this reservoir? Also yes. I'm watching for any nope ropes. This reservoir is a little bit low because it is August. No, it's September. We're actually, this is September. But once the snow flies, we'll fill up again. And we'll fill up right to that ledge. Whoa. This spot is actually more fitting for my other channel called Quiet Places with Marshall. Anyway, I'm going to take this bike home now because it's more fun to ride than it is to talk about it. Thanks again for watching.